The night was colder than Daniel could remember in months, the kind of cold that seeped through clothes and into the bones, reminding him just how thin his old jacket had grown. His breath puffed in the air as he rushed down the cracked sidewalk, carrying his little boy in his arms. "Hang on, bud, you broken bar, just hang on," he whispered, his voice shaking as much as his trembling hands. 5-year-old Liam's head rested against Daniel's shoulder. His chest rose and fell with shallow, uneven gasps, a wheezing sound following each breath. The boy's small fingers clutched a worn stuffed bear up its sleeves, one ear barely hanging on. That bear had been Liam's comfort through every hard night, through the hunger, through the days when Daniel couldn't even afford electricity. Tonight, though, it felt like the bear was holding on as desperately as Daniel was. By the time the sliding glass doors of St. Mary's Hospital came into view, Daniel's legs ached, but he forced himself to run. He pushed through them, chest heaving, and blurted out to the receptionist, "Please see my son, he can't breathe right." The receptionist's eyes widened, and she wasted no time calling for a nurse. Within moments, a small team in scrubs appeared with a stretcher. They carefully eased Liam onto it, attaching monitors as Daniel tried to keep pace, his calloused hands twitching with the helplessness of not being able to do anything. The world seemed like a blur. The bright overhead lights, the rhythmic beeping of machines, the hurried instructions of nurses and doctors. Daniel caught words like oxygen and respiratory distress, but his mind was clouded with fear. "Daddy," Liam whispered weakly as they wheeled him away. "I am right here, champ. I'm not going anywhere," Daniel said, forcing a brave smile even as his heart cracked inside. They reached the pediatric emergency ward, where a doctor began examining Liam with urgency. An oxygen mask was placed over his nose and mouth, and the sound of his wheezing lessened, though his eyes remained heavy-lidded. Daniel sat beside the bed, holding his son's small hand, whispering promises he wasn't sure he could keep. It wasn't supposed to be like this. Daniel had promised his late wife that he'd protect Liam, that he'd give him a life full of safety and love. But life had been merciless since she passed away 3 years ago. Bills stacked high, jobs came and went, and now he was barely scraping by with odd shifts at construction sites that didn't even pay regularly. The doctor finally turned to him. "Your son is stable for now. He has a respiratory infection that's caused complications. We'll need to keep him for observation and further treatment." Daniel nodded, relief flooding him, but it was short-lived. He already knew what the next sentence would be. "We'll need to run some tests and begin a course of antibiotics." "Has Liam been hospitalized before?" "No," Daniel said softly. The doctor's pen paused over the clipboard. "Insurance information?" Daniel froze. His throat tightened, shame burning him from the inside out. "Yeah, broken bar, I don't have any." "Not right now." The doctor gave him a quick, sympathetic glance but said nothing, only jotting down notes before leaving the nurses to continue care. Daniel leaned back in the chair beside Liam's bed, exhaustion hitting him like a wall. He hadn't eaten all day, and his body ached from the run, but none of that mattered. What mattered was Liam, and the sound of his breath slowly becoming steadier. "Daddy," Liam murmured from beneath the oxygen mask, his little voice muffled but determined. "Don't be sad." Daniel smiled weakly, brushing the boy's damp hair from his forehead. "I'm not sad, buddy. You're strong, stronger than me." Hours passed, and Daniel must have dozed off in the chair, because the next thing he knew, Liam's small hand was tugging at him. "Dad, you broken bar, look." Daniel blinked, sitting up straighter. He followed his son's gaze toward the glass window of the ward. On the other side, walking briskly down the corridor, was a woman in a tailored suit. Her heels clicked against the polished floor, and her aura was one of undeniable authority. Her face was striking, framed by sleek dark hair, her expression both sharp and focused. She moved like she belonged in a world far above Daniel's, a world of power and wealth. "That's Mommy," Liam whispered, pointing directly at her with his tiny finger. Daniel froze. His heart seemed to stop mid-beat. He looked at Liam, then back at the woman. "That's a broken bar, what?" he asked, his voice barely audible. "That's Mommy," Liam repeated, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. His eyes shone with certainty, even as the oxygen mask fogged with each breath. Daniel shook his head in disbelief. He wanted to dismiss it, to assume Liam was confused or dreaming. His wife had passed away. She was gone, and yet a broken bar. Something about the woman made Daniel's stomach twist. The woman paused, almost as if she felt someone's eyes on her. Her gaze flicked toward the pediatric ward, and for the briefest second, her eyes locked with Daniel's. It was enough. His breath caught. Something unexplainable passed through him, a recognition he couldn't place. Her eyes widened ever so slightly before she looked away, continuing down the hall with her entourage of assistants. Daniel sat back, stunned, his mind racing. Liam, however, smiled weakly. "Told you, Dad, you broken bar." Mommy came. Daniel squeezed his son's hand tightly, his heart a storm of emotions, a confusion, disbelief, and something else he couldn't name. Who was she, and why did it feel like this was only the beginning of something that would turn their lives upside down? Daniel couldn't sleep that night, even though his body begged for rest. The pediatric ward was quiet except for the soft beeping of machines and the occasional shuffle of nurses. Liam had drifted into a deeper, calmer sleep thanks to the oxygen and medication, his little chest rising and falling with less strain. But Daniel's mind was anything but calm. He replayed the moment over and over, Liam's finger pointing at the woman, the certainty in his son's voice, the shock of their brief eye contact, the woman's tailored suit, her commanding presence, the way even doctors seemed to step aside when she passed as she was no ordinary visitor. She was someone powerful, someone untouchable, and yet, Liam had called her mommy. Daniel rubbed his face with both hands, whispering to himself, he doesn't know what he's saying. He's just a kid. He misses her. He broken bar. His voice cracked, and he fell silent. Deep down, he couldn't shake the feeling that something about that woman wasn't a coincidence. The next morning, sunlight poured weakly through the blinds of the ward. Daniel woke to the sound of Liam stirring, his small hand reaching for him. "Daddy," Liam whispered, his voice stronger than the night before. Daniel leaned close. "I'm here, champ." "Is mommy coming back?" Daniel froze. His throat tightened. How was he supposed to answer that? He brushed Liam's hair gently, forcing a smile. "Mommy's in heaven, buddy. She's always watching you." But Liam shook his head stubbornly, his little eyes shining with that same certainty. She was here. I saw her." Before Daniel could respond, the door to the ward creaked open. A nurse stepped in, followed by a tall figure. Daniel's heart skipped. It was her, the woman from last night. She wasn't in a suit this time. Instead, she wore a simple cream blouse and navy slacks, though the elegance never left her. Even dressed down, she looked like someone who belonged on magazine covers. Her hair was neatly tied back, her posture straight, and yet her eyes a broken bar. Her eyes betrayed something softer, something searching. Daniel shot to his feet, his protective instincts flaring. "What are you doing here?" he asked sharply, keeping himself between her and Liam. The nurse looked between them, then excused herself quietly, leaving the room. The woman's gaze flicked to Liam first, her lips parted as if she wanted to say something but couldn't find the words. Then she looked at Daniel, her voice steady but low. "I didn't mean to intrude. I just a broken bar wanted to check on him. He looked unwell last night." Daniel narrowed his eyes. "And why would you care?" For a long moment, silence stretched. Finally, she sighed. "Because he broken bar. I know who he is." Daniel felt the ground tilt beneath him. "What's that supposed to mean?" The woman stepped closer, her heels clicking softly against the tile. "I'm Victoria Hale, CEO of Hale Industries." The name hit Daniel like a punch. Hale Industries was one of the largest corporations in the city, powerful, influential, untouchable. What could someone like her possibly want with his son? Victoria's eyes softened as she looked at Liam again. "He looks so much like her," she whispered. Daniel stiffened. "Like whom?" Victoria turned back to him, and in her gaze was something he never expected, a pain. "Your wife, Emily." Daniel's chest constricted. He took a step back, shaking his head. You didn't know her." "You couldn't have." But Victoria nodded slowly. "She was my sister." The words slammed into him like a tidal wave. His knees nearly buckled. "No, a broken bar," Daniel whispered. His mind whirled, trying to process. Emily had been an only child, or at least, that's what she had always told him. She never spoke of family, never mentioned siblings. She used to brush off questions with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Victoria's voice trembled slightly. She left home when she was 18. She wanted nothing to do with her family, a broken bar with me. I tried to find her, but she disappeared. Until last night, I thought she was still alive. Daniel's breath caught. He lowered his gaze, his chest tight. Emily, a broken bar. She passed away 3 years ago. Cancer. She never broken bar. She never told me about you. Victoria closed her eyes, pain flickering across her face. For the first time, she didn't look like a powerful CEO. She looked like a grieving sister. When she opened her eyes again, tears shimmered in them. Then that little boy, a broken bar. I'm a broken bar. Her voice broke slightly. He's my nephew. Daniel's hands clenched into fists, torn between anger and disbelief. He wanted to protect Liam, to shield him from strangers, but he couldn't deny the resemblance now that he looked closer. Liam's eyes, bright and determined, were just like Emily's, but his sharp jawline, that tilt of his chin when he was stubborn, a broken bar. He saw it mirrored in Victoria. You stayed away, Daniel said harshly, his voice thick. She went through everything alone. We went through everything alone. Where were you? Victoria's face paled, but she didn't argue. I didn't know where she was. She didn't want to be found. And when I finally had the resources to look a broken bar, it was too late. The room was heavy with silence. Liam stirred again, opening his eyes. When he saw Victoria, his face lit up with a weak but genuine smile. Mommy, he whispered. Daniel's chest ached. She's not your mommy, champ, he said softly, trying to correct him. But Victoria knelt beside the bed, her voice trembling. No, sweetheart, I'm your aunt, your mommy's sister. Liam blinked, confused. Auntie? Victoria smiled gently, brushing his hair back just like Emily used to. Yes, auntie. And I promise, I'm not going anywhere now. Daniel turned away, his emotions a storm. He didn't trust her. He couldn't. Not yet. She was powerful, wealthy, and from a world that had only ever looked down on men like him. And yet, when he glanced back, he saw Liam's tiny hand reaching for hers, holding it like he had always known her. Over the next few days, Victoria visited constantly. She brought Liam books, toys, and even sat by his bedside reading to him. Nurses whispered in the halls, surprised to see the usually stone-faced CEO looking so tender, so human. Daniel tried to keep his guard up, but little by little, cracks formed. He saw the way she laughed when Liam made silly faces, the way her eyes softened with guilt every time Daniel mentioned the struggles he and Emily had endured. One evening, as the city lights flickered outside the hospital windows, Daniel finally confronted her. Why are you doing this? He asked quietly, his voice heavy. Out of guilt, out of pity. Because I don't want handouts. Victoria shook her head firmly. Number. Because he's family. Because I failed Emily, but I won't fail him, or you. Daniel scoffed. Me? You don't even know me. Victoria's eyes locked on his. I know enough. I see the way you've fought for him. I see the exhaustion in your eyes, the calluses on your hands. You're the kind of man Emily would have been proud to love, and the kind of father Liam deserves. The words stunned him. For the first time, Daniel didn't see her as a CEO, or even as Emily's sister. He saw her as someone carrying the same grief, the same love, the same hope for Liam's future. And in that quiet moment, he realized something unexpected. Maybe Liam hadn't been entirely wrong. Maybe, in some way, she was a piece of mommy returned to them. The journey ahead would not be simple. Trust would take time, wounds would need healing, and their worlds were oceans apart. But as Liam drifted to sleep that night, his small hand clutching both of theirs, Daniel allowed himself a fragile, hopeful thought. Maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of a new family.